You are watching the second part to the battery relocation installation video on my 86 Mustang. So, happy Thanksgiving and let's get started. So, this is the second part of the video series. The first part, we found out where we wanted to put the battery box itself, the sealed battery box, and we found a good spot for it in the back here. So we've mounted the box to the trunk floor. And if you don't watch that video, just go back and watch the first part. In the second part here, we're going to be doing the wiring. So this is going to be about running the 1 gauge battery wires from the hatch area to the battery, from the battery box up to the solenoid, and then we'll be running the grounds and getting everything wired up. So let me show you guys what we've already done. Okay, as you can see, I've already got the car up on a jack stand here on the front. We've lifted it up, taken the wheel off so I can access the fender well again. I pulled out the rear seat and removed the kick panel here, or the door sill or kick panel, whatever you want to call it. So this has been removed, and we will be routing the cable. Let me show you guys. Let's start from the back. So I'll be routing 2 cables, the ground and the power. From the back of the box, we're going to run it underneath the carpet here, so it's hidden. And we're going to run it underneath, in between the carpet and the cover, on the very bottom, across the bottom of the back seat. And then I'll be running it through the corner of the seat and the rear, or the side panels here, and then we're running underneath the kick area, and then here, all the way across the bottom. And what I'm going to likely do is use a location where the cruise control connections go. So there is a grommet here that we'll either drill next to and try to get some of the wires out either below it, next to it, or even utilize this grommet here. And that'll bring the battery cables right here. And this is a perfect spot because when we bring it out here, we can go straight up along the top and then through the hole to the solenoid. And it'll also allow me a good spot to run a ground to as well. Okay, so I've got the grommet pushed out, and I've got just enough room in here that I should be able to slide both cables through here. And you can notice there's already a, I guess you could call it a taper on the metal here, so it's already bent in for the grommet, so it's not straight flat metal, so shouldn't be any issue with this cutting. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and start running the cable from this end, then back, and then we'll drape it all the way through, get it up to the battery box, and find out where we want to mount the fuse block. So yeah, I'm going to start pushing it through. To the battery with plenty left over, and that is good. 25 foot is enough. Let me show you where I ran it. So again, I'm coming out of that kick panel through the cruise control hole and down this into the plastic here, around there. It's going up in the crack of the seat here. basically you can't see it. It's in the hole there underneath the seat. You can see it right there. And down along that back side, it's dark, guys, but along the back side and then around the corner, and we'll have to get it underneath the carpet a little bit better here because it's going to have a hard time folding down and not be completely noticeable. Before I go too far into the routing of all the cables, I do want to go ahead and terminate one end of it. I want to show you guys how I do this. This is going to go to the starter solenoid, and this is a 1 gauge terminal. And this has been stripped down just enough to fit inside of here, nice and snug. And you want to make sure this cable is actually pretty thin, copper strand. It's not super hard or super solid core, but it will fit, you know, nice and neat inside of here. Just want to make sure you don't accidentally bend back a lot of these threads. So what we're going to do, this is how I do it. Put some heat shrink tubing over it first, and we're going to hold this up, not with your hands of course. We're going to heat it with a torch, fill it up with solder, and when I dip this into it, it'll be nice and solid, and then we'll heat shrink it up and make a nice solid, good looking connection. Torch ready, and my solder. Nice spool of thick solder here. This is a rosin core, or a flux core. You want to fill it up with lots. Okay, I've cleaned off the extra solder, and now we're just going to put some heat shrink on it. And there you go. That's how we'll make all the connectors all the way through the car. Okay, so I've got it ran from the solenoid, and it's going up the fender well again. I got it zip tied a couple times. I do want to get some L clamps, I think they call them, and tie them up here. I'm going to put these all along the red wire, but everything's closed today, so we'll have to go. I'm going to go back tomorrow, I guess, and clamp all this stuff down with the proper rubber clamps and the screw-in clamps. So we got this going through the fender well here, along the sill and into the back seat. Now I pulled this back out to run it to the battery. I don't want to run it. What I found out was if you just run it pretty much under the carpet or through the crevice, it interferes with the seat right here, and you can kind of feel the wire squish when the seat's lowered and raised back, and I really don't like that. So I'm going to run it inside the plastics here. The idea is to run it and have it come out at a good location, probably either down here or back here underneath the shock tower. So to do that, unfortunately, I will have to take off this plastic piece, and there's a lot of screws, and there's a lot of, it's a big piece of plastic, and we'll have to take the speaker off too. But I think it's a small price to pay for trying to do it right. So I'm going to try to hide it where you really don't see these wires. So we're going to go ahead and remove the panel right here. Let's get to it. Okay, so this is what we got going on here. I've got basically a fish tape here, or a fish bar. I'm not sure what they call these. Are rods. These are those fiberglass rods you could run wire through. I use them for my house. They're awesome and super handy when you're running wire through walls. They also work well running wire through cars. So I've got it pinched basically between the side panels, and it goes all the way down into the base here. And I've pulled off the plastic cover, so we're going to run the cable underneath the floor, behind the plastic panels, and out that side. And then we'll put the cover back on, and I've notched the cover right there, so when it gets to the floor, the cables will be going through that notch on the bottom of the back seat, and they'll be running back through here. So once they're fished through here, I'll be able to loop it into this side, and we're going to cut a hole right there, and the cables will come out right here. So that's the plan. Got the hole drilled, and I got one power cable going through it. So that is a good spot for it. And I'll get the bottom one drilled, and we're going to go ahead and run a ground cable. And I'll show you guys what I'm going to do. I'm going to run a ground cable from the battery into the hole here. It's going to mount to the top of the shock tower, and then run the same length as the power cable all the way back up into the ground location I've got on the chassis up here. So it's going to be grounded in the back, and it's going to be grounded right here on the front, right there. Ground space. Let's talk about grounds real quick. So these cars are obviously fuel injection, and it's really important that you've got obviously good grounds all the way throughout the car. I think it's going to be more than sufficient to make sure that the back and the front both has a nice ground. You know, you want a good ground to the back, you know, nice flow, so that everything in the back of the car is going to get good current through it, including the fuel pump. You want to make sure that part of the car has a good ground as well as the front. And then we're going to run a nice thick cable from this location as well, also to the engine blocks. Okay, got the shock tower bolt, or the shock bolt, the rear shock bolt off, and I measured it with my calipers just to get an idea of how big it is. It's about 10 mil as far as the hole of the nut here. So that's about how big I'm going to need to open this hole up for the battery terminals. So I want to keep these terminals and open this guy up to about this big, so that it'll slip over the shock stud. Got two terminals now that have been walleted out here to, that's still hot, half an inch. So this will fit over the shock stud, and I need two of them because one of them is going to go straight from here to the battery cable that goes all the way to the other side of the car, and the other one's going to go actually to the negative terminal post on the car. So I'm going to do it here since this is the best place to do it. Okay, I've got the ground cables done. So this is ready basically to bolt down. So you can see one of these is going to go to the front, and this one's going to go to the battery terminal. And it's coming out of the holes there. And we're going to figure out where we're going to put them in the box. And they're going to have to feed through the box so that we can solder on the terminals. Okay, so I determined I'm going to put the fuse block in the back of the box. So I've drilled holes in it and just pretty much fastened it up with some nuts and bolts. So this is going to go back over its studs, and the fuse block will go, this guy will go in to a connector there, and then we'll have another one coming out of the fuse into the battery. So that's what this is for, and yeah, so now we get to create terminals inside the car. Woohoo! do a little test fit here. I need to do some major vacuuming over here. In fact, let's just get the vacuum out and do that. The box is notched. Not the prettiest thing in the world, but that's exactly what I wanted. Well, not the not pretty part, but that's the notch I wanted. So what's going to happen now? That'll go in there, and then our power cable will be much shorter, and go into the box like that. And the lid will close down over the top of it like so. So these are nice and tight together. And I'll show you on the other side what it looks like there. So that is how it's going into the box. You'll see it be nice and tight. So this guy will be going into the fuse. Or I'm sorry, this one will be going to one side of the fuse here, and that'll go to the other side. So all you gotta do really now to finish the battery box in is make the battery terminals. So first of all, I'm gonna set the battery in and just kind of get a feel how long the power cable there needs to be before I cut it. Okay guys, so I'm pretty happy with that battery terminal. I got a little bit of solder on it, more than I wanted to. I think I was able to clean it off though, heat it back up and kind of knock some of the solder off, so I'm going to make sure that it does fit over the terminal. But otherwise, we have one battery terminal. Man, it's been a long night guys. So this is a terminal went quite a bit better. I didn't go all crazy on it with the solder, and I ran out of heat shrink anyway. So we are ready to put in this battery. I think I'm going to vacuum it up real quick. I got the battery terminal connected to the mega fuse. Slide it over. Let's put the battery in. So the negative is going to slide in like this. Our positive cable I'm sitting on. Looking at it, looks pretty good. I could put some zip ties along these here, kind of tie these two together. Kind of in hindsight, I wish I would have ran, and this is just afterthought, the power cable on the bottom. I don't know. I don't like the crossover right here. I think it looks kind of weird, kind of anal like that, I guess. But so you guys know that I'm pretty good about admitting my mistakes, and I'm about to admit another one now. I realized that whenever I plugged in the cables here and everything was powered up, that it should have had power to the car. In fact, the dome light should have come on because all the doors are open, and it didn't. So I started checking voltage at different locations, and I realized up at the front starter cylinder I had 0.4 volts. And that's when I realized that the car is not grounded. So I haven't ground, the other cable yet to the front. Otherwise, I think it would work just fine. But I was told online, and I probably misunderstood, that your shock tower was a good ground point. And I'm looking at it, I'm thinking that there is no metal to metal here onto the chassis or to the frame. There's a bushing isolating this whole top section, and then the shaft of the shock just goes down, obviously, through the shock into another bushing. So these are isolated by bushings, and there's no contact to the chassis here. So this is a bad contact spot for your ground, guys. Okay, this is my solution. So it kind of dawned on me that these studs are welded to the floor, and this strap goes to this strap, which is also welded to the floor. So I think actually this is a pretty good contact for the rear end. So I've tied these up here, and I've got dome light. Okay, so we've pretty well wrapped it up. Let me show you guys what I've done. I got the line clamps in. These are 1/2" P line clamps, and I've used a lot of these on the interior of the car. So I've got the P clamps here, tying down, and there's one on the red one right. You can't see it, but it's right here. So the black and red are now tied down into the inner fender well. Got the kick panel back on. I am kind of genuinely concerned about maybe the thickness of the cable pushing the carpet and it actually pulling out from the kick or the door sill here. So we'll see how that holds up on the underside here. So as you remember, we ran the ground up through here. I went ahead and terminated it today and tied it to our main ground, and we added everything for the engine harness right here. And I've also put some P-clamps on both the power and ground cables here and up there, and also on the main engine harness back here, just kind of tying it all together so it does a good job of holding it all up there and hopefully won't move and fall and chafe on anything and cause any kind of an arc. But it is solid. The back seat's back together. The seat is not actually clipped on all the way, and I'm having a hard time getting it to clip back on. It's always been hard to clip on, but it's a little bit more harder now that I've got the cables back there, and I've got some more of those P-clamps. So what I'll probably do is just push them up a little bit higher and clamp them down behind the rear vertical seats, so that way it's not quite in the way of this guy. But that's the last thing I had to do to pretty much clamp it all down. You can see the final results here on the box. So there it is. So again, I think it looks okay. I kind of wish the cables were reversed and a little bit tied up better, but that is one thing off our list, man, and I think we can check some stuff off this list. There's a bunch of stuff on my list here I need to add on to it, but that is one big feat. It's done. The battery relocation kit's done. It's wired. It's wired well. I'm going to end up running one more cable from that same ground to the engine block as well. So that'll kind of tie in the whole car. We're grounded now in, well, 3 spots. And it should be pretty well grounded. So guys, that's it, man. I hope this is a somewhat informative video. As usual, please leave your comments. I know everyone's going to have their opinions on the battery in the back and the box and maybe the color of the box, everything else. Some people like aluminum, some people like plastic, some people think it's an eyesore. Whatever the case, leave your comments below, and I'm happy to entertain all of them. So you guys have a good night, and we will see you next time, which will be the clutch install on the transmission. So we'll see you later.